Good morning, Mr. Peck. Thank you for coming in today to interview for our job as an administrative assistant for our school. Um, First of all, will you tell us what is your top reason for wanting this position? Just right out of the gate, why did you apply for this?
I applied for this position. I think I have excellent communication skills. I'm very organized, very detail oriented. Um, I'm able to work under pressure. Um, so yeah, this is something that I think I'm suited for.
Okay. And I think that leads into some of my next question. Organization is key, very important. Tell me about your successes in organization that you think would aid in making our administration more efficient.
I have been on committees where, as far as putting together large parties, this is outside the school setting, of course. So as far as the planning aspect of it, right down to all the fine details, I was able to reach out to different vendors and follow that information together and get it together in a reasonable amount of time before the deadline that was set.
I think timeliness is very important too. And I'm going to skip around in my questions a little bit because I'm just kind of following what you say to keep everything going. So that is my next thing is a lot of what we do is reaction. I have something that comes up, or we have something that comes up in the administration, and this is where you come in with your organization and communication to make all the details come together. Um, but what can you do to be more proactive in our procedures to make things flow smoothly?
So I think one of the things I can do is anticipate some of the problems that might arise. Technology more times than not is always on the fritz. Just being able to foresee problems that might arise with that. Um, as far as getting in contact with the different maybe stakeholders in the community, um, probably just having a backup plan if plan A doesn't work.
Excellent. Okay, so since you mentioned technology, that is in 2024 a very important part that we have to have. There's so many different facets of communication. We have email, we have collaborative documents. Um, so, what is your experience? We communicate with our stakeholders, like you just said. Um, we have a school website that we keep updated. We have social media that's an excellent way for parents and stakeholders to be able to keep up with what we do in our school. Tell me your experience about managing social media posts or updating websites, shared calendars, and or any other form of communication that you have experience with.
Right, so I have worked on documents before with supervisors, Google Docs, sharing those documents. But as far as I think it was you said not calendars, but
Updating the school
the social
website.
media page.
Yeah. Mhm.
I have not had experience in that, but I am willing to learn.
Okay.
I don't foresee that as being too much of an issue that would keep me from being able to perform my duties. Like I said, I'm a quick learner, quick
Okay.
study.
Right. And I appreciate that. Okay. And thank you for being honest with that. But I think that is something that you would be able to pick up. All right. Let's say you have a lot of, it sounds like you have a lot of strengths in the areas of organization and communication and working through. You're going to kind of be the liaison sometimes between the administration and the school staff and the teachers. So we have teachers have their own amount of clerical work and paperwork that they have to do. And sometimes that can become overwhelming for them and they become stressed out because they want to be in the classroom teaching the students. How can you aid a stressed out, overwhelmed teacher that may be a little bit emotional or frustrated in easing that clerical work? Not saying that wouldn't be your job to do for them, but what tricks of the trade could you help them so that they could make that part of their job easier?
That's a great question. I think I would just, try to um, ensure the teachers that, understand that this may seem like a lot, but just try to break it down into steps so they won't feel so overwhelmed, and kind of maybe guide them through the process, maybe
Mhm.
even do some guided practice, or maybe even have a short PD on it. You know,
Okay,
um, that's something that can be probably done during New Teachers Institute.
that's an excellent idea. And you wouldn't mind preparing that to help our teachers?
Not at all, not at
Okay,
all. Each one teach one.
that's right. That's right. Okay. That is excellent. Let's see. Let me look at my other questions I have here. Okay, so on a different aspect, we've talked about the organization and the communication. You will, and we've talked about working with teachers, and we've talked about, if the teachers come in frustrated. You are going to be, as administrative assistant, probably that front line that answers the phone or sees that person first before they get to the administrator to meet with them. How can you set the tone to have positive interactions with our office and our stakeholders?
Just by being upfront, um, letting them know what to expect, the expectations, and just going from there.
Okay. What would some of those expectations be? What do you think? We have a
Um,
very collaborative culture in our school, and we want to listen to the ideas of others and let them have their input. But we also, as administrator, I have to keep the legal bindings that we have in mind and the limitations and constraints that we have as far as budget and time. So, what would some of those expectations be that you think you could explain to somebody coming into our office?
without breaching any confidentiality, just remind them that anything that they have to share will be, evaluated. There's no such thing as a bad idea. And, I guess also to just ensure them that we are a team, and what we're doing is to better move the school forward and our students.
Sounds like you have looked at our mission statement as well, so that will align with that. I appreciate that. Okay, because we are here after all for the students to make all of this run. All right. Um, on another example, on another facet, being that frontline person and also being in the administrative office, and there is a lot of confidentiality. There are a lot of things that we will handle in our office that perhaps the students and teachers may not be aware of. And one of those would be safety concerns. We're in a time today where we have threats. They may be bogus, they may not. Um, how could you help assist in keeping things calm and safe in our school?
I honestly don't um, have an answer to that question, but that was something I'd be willing to research to find out.
Well, do you have any experience of handling safety issues in your previous positions that you might could bring to the table?
No, no, I mean no more than uh, fire drills, but um, as far as active intruders or active shooters, no, I don't have any experience with that. No more than what I have seen.
Mhm.
Um, but in this new position, I'm not sure how that will work. I mean, other than ensuring that everybody is calm and follows the protocols that are in place um, for such instances.
Okay, and I think that would be important just to help keep the protocols in place. Like you said, even with the teachers, presenting that PD to help them know the procedures because it's your position. Our administrative assistants in the past, they help us keep our jobs and they help us stay safe. And without them, this would not work. They are the glue that holds everything together sometimes. So let's say it's not a school shooter, God forbid that happen, but we do have a situation where somebody comes in frustrated, they need to get to me, they need to see me, I'm in a meeting or unavailable. What can you do to de-escalate that situation?
Sure. So the one thing I could do is definitely talk with that person, um, get their information, see what their problem is, and see if there's any way that I can help them in the meantime until until you are available. If that's not possible, um, just keep talking to the parent and reassuring them that their concerns are important, and they will be addressed in a timely manner if I'm not able to assist them in the meantime.
Right, because there's a lot of tools that you will have ready to go ahead and assist in that situation. Okay. Um, let's see. I think we have covered a lot of our questions. I had one more question about your reports of communication, and you talked to me about that. Tell me about, your writing and technical background. What training do you have to be sure that I know that you are going to be able to communicate effectively? You mentioned Google Docs earlier, but just tell me a little bit about your background as far as what is your training as far as preparing documents, preparing, using technology, writing efficiently, those things?
I am certified in Microsoft Works,
Okay.
all things Google, slides, documents, spreadsheets. Um, I do have a BS in business, but a lot of that did require an extensive amount of writing.
Mhm,
So being able to communicate effectively
mhm.
was paramount for the job, well, for the coursework, should I say.
Okay. And that is very important. Your part is the business side of what we do. So having that business background, I think will be beneficial. I think we've just about covered everything. And you've mentioned a couple of things that you'd be willing to learn. So tell me, we started with your top reason for wanting to do this job. Let's finish with what is one thing that if you were to receive this position, or get hired for this position that you feel like you would need to start developing immediately to be able to perform efficiently?
um, so I definitely have to um, stumped.
Well, let me just remind you, a couple of things were the safety, how to handle those situations, and then the social media. Those were a couple of things that you were unsure about, that you didn't have previous experience in.
Okay. So right away, the safety issue, of course, social media, that's important. Being able to draw the community in to see what we're doing at the school. But I think safety is first, definitely. Being able to handle those um, situations as they arise and handling those effectively. That's something I think I would need to learn right away.
Okay. All right. And I think that's very important. Safety is first. If the students do not feel safe at school or parents do not feel safe sending their child to school, we cannot be effective in what we do in educating the children. Do you have any questions for me before we finish?
I do not.
Okay. Well, thank you for coming in today, and I will get back with you in a day or two. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Right. Good morning, Mrs. Etter. Thank you
Good
for coming
morning.
in. So before we get started, I want to thank you for coming in to interview with us today. This is Montgomery County Public Schools, and we are interviewing you for a second grade position. You'll be teaching all subjects. So as it relates to this, can you tell me a little bit about your background?
Okay. My background is I have an elementary education degree. Um, and I have also been trained recently in the letters and OG training to help aid my students with the Alabama Literacy Act components. And I'm currently going through training for the Numeracy Act to help them with the math components to meet that proficiency as well. I've had several years of experience, about 15 years at this point. Not all of my work has been in second grade. I have taught older grades as well. But second grade is a great grade because they do come to me for the most part knowing the basics of reading, and I get to dig into comprehension with them and start introducing them in how to use reading for information as well.
It's great that you are actually starting with the Numeracy Act, learning that, and you already come with um, background with the letters
Mhm.
and OG training. So as far as like I said, you will be in a self-contained class where you'll be teaching all subjects. So this is great. Um, how would you say you get along or work with your peers?
I think it's very important that we have a collaborative environment because we are all there to help the students, whether the student is in my class or my neighbor's class across the hall. The goal is to have them proficient and ready for third grade by the time they leave our hallway. I also think it is important that we work together and build each other up. So, because we cannot just live within our four walls and our island of teaching. And sometimes my ideas may have limits and they may be doing something in their classroom that could reach a child that I may be struggling with.
Absolutely. The team effort is definitely, and the collaborative approach is definitely one that we pride ourselves in because we are a family. And like you said, what we're doing is to make students better, not just better students, but actually better citizens once they leave these walls.
Yes.
Um, so, and thinking about that, is there a time in your teaching profession that you've experienced a difficult situation? And if you did, what was it and what did you do to alleviate the problem?
Um, well, I think students get stressed at school. And sometimes parents don't understand that school is sometimes students act differently at school than they do at home. And as a teacher, I have to communicate, their grades and their behavior. And sometimes parents are not exactly receptive to that. Um, so I have to make sure that I keep documentation as to what the grades are, where they're coming from, and the resources that we use for that so that I can be helpful to the teachers, to the parents, so that they can work as a team with me for their child. I think it's very important to keep that communication open with the parents so that they know, even on the bad days or the good days, we want to celebrate their children or we want to help their children. And we are both on the same team, and that's their child.
What are some things that you do in the classroom to promote equity among students, um, non-disabled students, as well as those who may need additional supports? So, what are some things that you do in the classroom to ensure equity among all students?
Okay. I like flexible seating in my classroom. Um, Students have jobs that they can do in the classroom. Of course, we have line leaders, we have cabooses, I have material managers who can help pass out things or gather materials. My students become accustomed to a very flexible routine where we may all be in whole group facing forward, listening to me, but then we may divide up into groups that are inquiry groups where I have group leaders or I have group recorders or I have group, um, like I said, material managers. So students can learn to work collaboratively, but I also build those groups based on student strengths so that they feel empowered. One student may be a better writer than another student, so they need to be the recorder. Another student may be better at gathering materials. Another student may have better speaking ability and leadership skills, so they would be a great group leader, but all feel empowered and important in those positions because without each one and each different ability, we don't we we couldn't function as a group or as a classroom. I also like to do peer helpers. Um, Reading, of course, is very important. So we have reading partners. Some students could take off at this point and read independently, some of my higher students. Um, but they could be partnered with a student who may not be ready for that yet, and that would allow them to audibly hear that reading fluency and also create friendships with a friend that they may not have considered a friend before.
Okay. And thinking about how you delegate the different responsibilities to different students. Um, so those who show or have weaknesses, is there anything specifically you do to build them up in those areas?
Well, I just keep trying. Like, there are going to be some kids who never feel confident about being a leader in a group because they are not the extrovert. They are not the one that wants to speak out. So I will put them in those situations, but I will also observe the behavior to see if that is something that is comfortable. If it is uncomfortable, it's going to impede on their learning. And that is, so as the year goes, we want to pull them out of that comfort zone to empower them in those behaviors. And then hopefully over time, over the course of the year, I'll build that rapport with the students so that they feel confident and can succeed in the various capacities that may be a weakness for them.
It's definitely important to observe, the class and the students within your classroom,
Mhm.
um, and sort of be a manager and facilitate the different avenues in which they travel. And with that in mind, um, how do you plan and structure your lessons to ensure that they meet curriculum standards and engage students?
Okay. Planning the lessons to meet curriculum standards, that again goes back to having a collaborative structure with the team of teachers as well. I'm not sure what your planning periods are like, but in previous schools, we were able to meet together at least once or twice a week to be sure that our lessons were continuing and we had the resources we needed to stay on track with each other. Um, I I also, I'm sorry, can you repeat the other part of the question?
Yeah, to ensure that they meet curriculum standards and engage students.
Okay.
But before you respond to that part, um, so we do have um, we are K through 3, and so we do have six teachers per grade level. So we do have shared shared lesson planning.
Okay. Okay. Um, do we discuss data during those meetings as well?
Absolutely. So we do have professional learning communities.
Mhm.
We do meet every other week, so that's twice a month. We have professional learning communities geared towards math and also for reading. And then we all come together collectively, discuss data. Um, we discuss the strengths of the students. We discuss trends and also different strategies to move them forward.
Okay. Um, so to answer that part about engaging students, I like to use a lot of different materials. I like to use manipulatives, of course, for math so that they can see the math and see the numbers. They can visualize what they are working with. I like to, even with reading components with the phonics, manipulatives for onset and rhyme to put those words together, hand motions. I do a lot of movement. I also have a music background as well, so I like to teach them songs that help them remember different concepts. And that helps as well. And we also have, of course, in today's classroom, we have the technology capacity where we can use different apps that engage the students as well.
And I'm glad you did bring up technology. That was one of the other questions I was going to ask you. Um, how important is technology in the classroom, and what percentage of that um, is involved when you do your planning?
Okay. Well, let me ask you first, since I'm coming in, do you have
Yes.
Chromebooks for your students or iPads? Does each student have access to one of those?
Each student has an iPad.
Okay. All right. Um, so I think when technology first came out, there was a big push to go implement that in. And I was around when the NCTE implemented the tech literacy rules that we wanted to add to our standards. And then, of course, I taught through COVID as well, when everything was on the iPad and everything was technology based. But I feel like we need to move back to some more, like I said, manipulatives, paper, pencil. I mean, even getting second graders still have some motor skills they need to work on: cutting scissors, glue, even some Play-Doh and some salt play or sand play. Um, I think technology needs to be limited to where they have it maybe an hour throughout the whole day, whether that's 20 minutes at the beginning, 20 minutes during an intervention time, and maybe 20 minutes otherwise. But I don't think anything prolonged more than 20 minutes would be beneficial to the students' development um, in the curriculum. I could teach math and writing with a paper and a piece of paper and a pencil. Um, but technology does aid in this generation's connection and engaging. So it's important that I include that in my classroom.
Yeah. So I think one of the main differences is um, from what we're teaching and how we were taught um, is actually basics and fundamentals. So technology, they were born into technology. So of course that's all they know. But being able to reach back and go to the actual hardcore books, flipping the pages, knowing how to hold a book correctly,
Right.
going from left to right, that's very important to be able to bridge that gap, even
Left to
with
right,
technology.
top to bottom. Yes.
Yes.
I had a student
Um,
this year tell me that I learned how to read this year. Before I tried to read with my eyes, but Miss Etter taught me how to read with my finger.
oh
And
wow.
and I thought that was so important because they they learned to track, and that kept them on track and helped them stay focused.
Absolutely. Um, we've covered a lot of uh, questions. I think I've covered mostly everything that I wanted to ask. Um, is there anything that you want to ask of me at this time?
Um, well, you told me that I was self-contained and that we do have iPads. What are your thoughts about, the autonomy that I would have in the classroom? Like, are you a school system where if you walk in my class, I'm doing a lesson, and you walk in the next class and they're finishing the sentence that you heard in my class? Do you want us to be that in control, or do I have the autonomy to be able to differentiate based on the needs of my students in my classroom?
You, that's an excellent question. Um, Within the parameters of the pacing guide and the curriculum that's set forth, um, as long as you're, I won't say covering each of those topics, but as long as you're addressing that and the students are getting the information that you're giving to them, you have the freedom to do what you need to do to get our kids to where they need to be.
Okay. My classroom is not a quiet classroom. That's why I wanted to ask. I have
I
had teachers say, "Oh, well, they're really loud." Well, because we're singing a song about rhyming words, or we're talking about adding numbers, or we're talking about, different aspects, maybe even socio-emotional learning, um, to incorporate that. We move, we walk around. Um, I like to be able to take my class outside on nice days and perhaps do some learning with chalk on the sidewalk, just do math on the sidewalk one day. I just want to know, would I have the freedom to be able to do that if I saw that that was necessary to my classroom climate?
Yes, ma'am, you would be. Um, and just listen to you explain to me about your different background and how you would incorporate music into the classroom. I can tell that you're very innovative, and that's something that we're definitely in need of. Maybe you could, during one of our PLCs, you can share some of those strategies with the other teachers as well.
Okay. I would love to do that. I think I could bring that to your school if that is something that I can offer.
All right, Mrs. Eddard, once again, I'd like to thank you for coming in. Um, you'll be hearing from us shortly.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Peck, for having me today.